Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Build. I'm your host, Brittany Jones-Cooper, and today we're discussing the film The Aftermath. Set in Germany after World War II, this moving story follows Rachel as she reunites with her husband, a British colonel, tasked with rebuilding the city of Hamburg. She soon encounters a German widower and his daughter who will share their home, and very quickly, grief and mistrust lead to passion and betrayal. Today, I'll be joined by the film's director, James Kent, and actress Keira Knightley, but first, here is The Aftermath.
Rachel.
Hello, Lewis.
Look at you. They're still finding bodies. There's chaos out there.
This house is being requisitioned by the British government.
Es ist jetzt Ihr Haus. Aber wir haben uns.
Hey, Lewis.
Rachael Morgan, please come inside.
It's my wife.
My daughter and I will stay out of your way until we move to the camp.
What if we let them stay on?
You mean live with them? There may not be an outward show of hatred, but it's there below the surface.
During the war, did you ever hope for a German victory? Did the bombing affect the health of you and your family?
It affected the health of my wife. She died in the firestorm.
I'm so sorry. You didn't tell me what I was walking into. This isn't how it was supposed to be.
None of this is how it is supposed to be.
Please don't go.
I had a job to do.
If you're going to spy on a girl, the least you could do is pay her a compliment.
Yes, of course.
Something's changed. Be careful, that's all. They don't like us.
I never thought that I could be happy like this.
Come with me. This is what you wanted.
To new beginnings.
Please help me welcome Keira Knightley and James Kent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
Very good, thanks.
I am fantastic, actually. Yeah, really good.
That felt like a really genuine response.
No, it's great.
I got to watch the movie 1.5 times, by the way. And I watched it again the half time because there's just so much in there historically that I loved. And I ended up going online and even looking into this period a little more because I've realized we, see a lot of movies set during World War II, but kind of afterwards, we don't talk about that time period very often. So James, I'll start with you. Can you set the scene a little bit and express why this was an interesting story for you to want to tell?
Yeah, I mean, this is the most amazing moment in history. We had won the Second World War, and instead of kind of going after the Germans and punishing them, which you might expect considering the devastation and the loss, the human lives, the men and women who'd lost their lives, we sort of reached out and we helped them stand up again. Because I think the viewpoint was, you know what, we don't want another story of vengeance, of them coming back at us. So it's like, let's just resolve this, help them, and build a better world, actually. And for 70, 75 years, that's really paid off. There hasn't been conflict, international conflict in that scale, and it was just the most generous thing that we could have done. We should be really, really proud, the Americans and the British, for what we did in that moment in time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was such a difficult time. Keira, when you first saw the script, is that something that drew you to it as well?
Yeah, I think that's what interested me about it. 'Cause, I've seen many films in World War II. I've certainly been in a few films of World War II, and I'd never thought about it. And I thought that's an extraordinary thing not to have thought about how on earth they rebuilt this, particularly that continent of Europe. We've now seen peace in Europe for the longest stretch of time ever, which is over 70 years. And it was because of how they rebuilt that continent after that catastrophic war. So I just thought, I thought it was really interesting. And also that idea of how on earth, it must have seemed like an apocalypse. apocalypse? How on earth do you rebuild yourself? How on earth do you come through something like that? And how do you forgive? How do you, this is the Rachel, the character I play, has been through tremendous tragedy in the film. How do you look at somebody who's German, who you blame for this tragedy, and see them as a human being again? I thought that was all kind of very interesting kind of ideas to explore.
Yeah, and Rachel carries herself with just this subtle, quiet desperation that is so sad and beautiful to watch. And you know that she's been through a trauma. And as we watch the film, you kind of get to understand her backstory a little more. What kind of preparation did you do to really tap into that emotion and then also to evolve her throughout the film?
I like a lot of research. I didn't actually have to do that much research for this. I think it was a story. Can I give away what's happened to her? I mean, I think so. So Rachel has lost her child, which is the thing that is the worst possible thing that anyone could imagine. So I did a little bit of research online, but basically there was an article, and it was a woman who'd lost her child who said that there's no name in the English language for that. If you've lost your husband, you're a widow or a widower or an orphan if you've lost your parent, but there is no name for a person who's lost their child because it's such a terrible thing that you don't even have an identity. And I thought that was I didn't need to do any more research after that. I thought, well, that's it.
Yeah, definitely. Right. And this is based on the book by Radian Brooke.
Yeah.
So for you, having the book and having the script, what pieces did you decide to pull from each, or how did you sort of know what to put in the film?
The essence of the story is obviously the book and the film are the same. I mean, what interested me was this triangle in the house, this idea that people had been separated for so long by the war, women and husbands, they just literally hadn't seen each other for years, and how much, never mind the fact that you've then lost a child as well, in a way the film is as much about a marriage or about, I suppose, a long-term relationship and how you keep that alive, which is a struggle we all have. In any of us who are in long-term relationships, is how do you keep connected? And I think for Rachel, being away from her husband for so long, and remember the husband, played by Jason Clarke, has also gone through this very violent experience of being a soldier on the front line. And so his world and her world have been entirely different, never mind losing little boy Michael. So that, for me, felt constant between the book and the film. I was really, really interested in that. And I was also interested in the idea of infidelity, what we call infidelity, and how guilt-ridden you are when you are going down that journey and you're desperate for physical contact. The loneliness of Rachel, but also the guilt of actually having sex with another man,
But the conflict is set up so beautifully because you can see that the three people involved in the triangle are all grieving in their own way. They're all in pain. Yeah. So it's hard to really villainize any of them. You find yourself really kind of understanding where each of them is coming from.
Yeah, I think that's what I liked about the script. I thought it's not trying to simplify this. It's not, there are no goodies and baddies here. Everybody is culpable, but everybody is also, it's completely understandable, and the question of who do you want her to go with, because you completely understand the love between her and her husband, but you completely understand not being able to deal with the weight of that grief and the weight of the idea of being in a long-term relationship and suddenly looking at your partner and realizing you're both strangers. And I think, that's one of the things in the script, like James has said, that I think every adult who's been through a couple of relationships that haven't worked, it is that moment where you look at your partner and you think, you're the person that I should know best in the world, and I don't know you and you don't know me. And it's the moment for most adults that is the loneliest moment in your life. This is the story of how on earth do you try and rebuild that? How do you bridge that gap again? And I think in that way, it's a very, very grown-up love story.
Absolutely. And it really does sort of show the different ways in which people grieve and deal with it. And that being the thing that maybe separates her husband and brings her closer to another man is grief doesn't look one way.
No, and I think it's easy. I think the thing with Lubert, he's a widower. He understands the grief, but it's not a shared grief. It's a very different thing, And I think with Rachel and her husband, it's territory that is so terrifying for both of them. And every time they look at each other, it reminds them of that tear inside them. It's much easier to go with somebody who understands but doesn't share that tear than it is to actually try and delve into it and move on, move forward.
And the wonderful Alexander Skarsgård plays Lubert. Yeah. Can you tell me what you guys maybe did to help bond yourselves before? Because the chemistry you have on screen is it's hot, guys. It's really great.
Yeah.
It's really great chemistry.
What do we do? He's a very, very nice man.
Yeah.
It's very, I mean, and so is Jason. You know, I worked with Jason Clarke before. I love working with Jason. And so I think it's terribly helpful when you get people that just get into a room and just really get on. And the same as, you know, James is he creates such a lovely atmosphere, a relaxed atmosphere on set that I think it was just...
Yeah, I mean, in the end, filming and the relationship between actors and each other and actors and the director is all about trust. Yeah. And it's not about fear. I don't believe it is. I mean, there are some directors who think it's about fear, but I don't subscribe to that. I think it's about liking, actually, and trusting the intellectual and creative choices each are making so that you can feel confident that this is going in the right direction. And I think, in a way, you can rehearse an awful lot, but you still may not have that trust. And it was immediately apparent between Keira and Alex, and Keira and Jason and Alex, that there was this bond between the three of them. And they were like, you know, a lot of the conversations I literally stood and just listened because it was important to me to see them connect and feel that they were trusting each other, liking each other, so that, you know, there were some quite intimate scenes in the film, that they would be done, you know, at a level of complete strength in each other and really believing that each other is doing it through generosity for the other person. It's not about claiming space, it's about making it work. And I think that was really, really important for the film.
Definitely. So how much do you block out, or do you sort of block out and then let them...
Technical.
Yeah.
Okay, technical. Okay. Well, I mean, the way it works for me is that we discuss. You know, we discuss, we talk, then we experiment. You know, and one of the things I don't like to do is be prescriptive about trying to ask actors to go here or there. Maybe they wouldn't do that anyway, but, you know, I think it's really important.
We did mostly we did. Sometimes we didn't, but mostly we did.
Sometimes they wouldn't.
Sometimes like, no, it's not there. No.
But on the whole, it's working it out. You know, again through that. Because I think everyone needs to feel they've got a stake in it. Yeah. You know, it's like not chess pieces. You know, everybody is there because they believe in it. They came because the story felt so important to each of us to get it right and to get to the most deep level of it. And I think that requires conversation, experimentation, laughter, as well as crying, and just working together to get to the heart of what this particular scene is all about. And you need to be open and trusting.
Definitely. That takes me to the intimate scenes, and you do have them. Again, it's sex, but it's also very vulnerable and beautiful. And so how do you approach it in that way that you can sort of convey that connection?
I'm always very aware, you know, I'm very picky when I do sex scenes. I mean, I say no to a lot. Yeah. But I felt like it was such an important part of this story because the whole thing with the husband and wife is that they're not connecting. So that physical thing isn't something that they're able to do. So that kind of, and obviously, as James has said, they've been apart for years. So that desperation for sex, that desperation for that part of your life, I thought it was very important that you saw it. We talked a lot. I mean, the first sex scene, am I allowed to swear?
Yes.
The first sex scene is a fuck on the table. You know, I mean, it's in no way love. Yeah. And actually
lust.
There's a lot of, there's lust, but there's also a lot of anger about, I mean, in a way I saw it as, it's more about the husband than it is who she's, you know, she wants revenge on the husband. Yeah. It's rage that she's actually, and in a funny way for Lubert as well, he's the person whose house has been taken, whose country has been taken. You know, it's, again, I'm going to fuck his wife. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's I thought it was a really interesting sort of scene for that. And then the second one is actually a love scene where, again, you want to feel that there's that intimacy, which wasn't the same as the first. Second one, I had a body double. Marvellous. I was like, yes, we can discuss all of this, and this is all marvellous, and I'm very happy for all of that to happen. And now, just as long as I don't have to do it, then that's fine. So we found a very nice lady.
Helped choose a body double in my life.
No.
Kira made the ultimate choice, obviously.
Did, yeah. Well, that must be fun.
It was great.
Yeah.
You know, she had a lovely body. She was very happy to do it. I said, that's brilliant, because I don't want to do it. So are you happy to do that? She said, yes, absolutely. I'm brilliant. And you've got a lovely body. So thank you very much.
Sort of a dream. You get to pick your body double and everybody's going to think it's you and you're like,
oh, yeah, it was like an avatar. Yeah, exactly. I said, and I'll be over there having a slice of cake and you can do that.
You can lie under Alexander Skarsgård.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I think they had a nice time.
Yeah,
I think
they had
it was
a very
fine.
nice time.
Winners all round.
I love that. The film is so beautiful and in parts part of it is this home that you're in. And I love the separation of his apartment upstairs and you guys living in grandeur downstairs. So can you just take me through some of the choices and, making his space a little darker? And again, it's all is extra important because this was his home.
Yeah, I mean, so this is, this is inspired by a true story in the sense that the novelist, his grandfather, had been a British officer, and he'd allowed, under very unusual circumstances, it was not allowed to let the German family stay. Normally they were moved out and put into camps. So because he was a compassionate man, he allowed this family to move up to the attic. So that's based on a real life story. And they just lived up there, for a year or 2 years or whatever, for quite a long time actually. And so I wanted to sort of emulate that. And actually in the movie, the attic was kind of constructed in the upstairs space of the house, but it looked modern in today's terms. So we had to completely bring everything in, the floorboards, the brickwork, everything you see is created by us, but it is upstairs. Because I felt important that for the actors, for Keira, she felt the kind of space of being in an attic.
So everything in the house was actually shot in one location in a house, which is super unusual for film. Normally it's in a studio or in different places. But it was kind of amazing. You understood the space of the house, so where everything was happening, the kind of layout. If I was upstairs and he was downstairs, you understood that proximity in a way that I think really, really helped the performance.
Yeah.
It's really cool to know. I just assumed it was a set somewhere.
No, not at all. In fact, the house, the exterior of the house, the magic of movies was in Czech Republic, right. But as soon as you go through the door, you're in Germany, in Hamburg. So we had to shoot that in 2 spaces.
Were there any unique difficulties to filming in the Czech, or what was that experience like?
It was the coldest winter since 1937.
Oh my God! Yeah.
So it was fun.
Yeah, it was amazing because originally in the script there was sort of lots of scenes where it says it's freezing cold and there's snow, and I remember having a meeting with you and going, look, we don't have enough money for the snow, so there's not going to be any snow, so don't worry about it. I was like, okay, fine. We then did all the costume fittings and everything. We got out thinking it's not going to be that cold. We got out to the Czech Republic and it was, freezing.
Unbelievable. And there was a scene we shot about midnight out in a forest, and all Keira had on was this incredible strapless dress and a tiny little fur jacket. And you had to go down this steep hill.
Run down a hill.
High heels.
Yeah, I nixed the high heels. I'm actually in boots because I was like, okay, this is actually hypothermia now. I'm going to lose my foot, and I really love this film, but it's not worth losing my foot. Can I have some boots, please? Yeah, but it was cold. It looks amazing, but it was cold.
Yeah. I was going to say, it looks beautiful. I'm sorry for your toes.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, they're all here. I kept them, so it's okay.
Success.
Yes.
8 of them are there.
Like I said, after watching this film, I really did sort of go into a Google deep dive, just seeing if some of the things were real, like the walls with the missing people, all of those things that felt real, and turns out that really was an experience. What was the most interesting thing you learned about this time period that you didn't know before, or that you want people to know?
Well, I think, again, you just really understand that history is written by the victors. So honestly, in England, we are not taught, maybe they are now in schools, but we certainly aren't, about what it took to rebuild Germany in any way, or actually the losses in Germany, what Germany looked like. It says in the film, there were more bombs dropped on Hamburg in one weekend than London in the whole of the war.
Yeah.
It was absolutely flattened.
Yeah.
And so I think, again, when you look at Germany today, when you look at Europe today, and you look at the success story of that, you really understand that actually that generation's triumph is what they built after that catastrophe. And honestly, I hadn't thought about that before, and I'm quite shocked at myself.
Well, they don't really teach you in schools a lot, so you have to seek things out.
Yeah,
well, I think particularly when it's a conflict, when you go, and then we won, and we won, and that was the end. Yeah. And of course, it's always more complex than that.
And how about you?
Something I didn't know were these young kids called the werewolves, or 88s. They were German, they were like Nazi kids who still believed they could sort of bring Hitler back, although he was dead. And they had 88s burnt into their arms, and they were like resistance workers. There's a kind of narrative in the film about one of these he's about 17, and they were just fanatics. And in a way, if you think of ISIS now, the Islamic State, and fanatics, there's always been this tendency amongst the most extreme, just to kind of like suicide bomb. They would kill themselves in order to take out British or American officers. And that was new to me, these werewolves, these 88s.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
I also Googled that afterwards.
Yeah, I know.
It was really informative.
Yeah.
Well, I know our audience has a couple of questions. So before we get out of here, Who do we have first?
Hi. What inspires you to play period characters? What do you like most about it? And if you could choose to play any character, who would you like to play?
Ooh. What inspires me? I mean, period roles. I think it's just what I've been offered. The characters that are the best have, for me, been in period films. I don't know why that is. I mean, I think partly it's that I've wanted to base my career in Europe, and actually that's what we mostly export. So if you want a career where it is kind of with more of a global audience, generally speaking, in Europe, it's going to be in period drama. On the other side of that, I do love history. I have always loved history, and I find it fascinating. You know, I knew nothing about this particular moment in history, so the chance in my job to suddenly go, oh wow, I get to learn all about this kind of time and actually think about this. I suppose it's kind of, you know, a moment of growth, I suppose, and to continue my own education. I find really exciting.
James, you've also done a lot of period.
Oh, if I could play any character. If I could play any character. It's Josephine de Beauharnais, who was later Josephine Bonaparte.
Wow, good one. Yeah, great.
Great one.
Great, yeah.
James, can you help us make that? I think we can make that happen.
Yeah.
Can that happen right now?
Let's do it.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely.
I would say you've also done a lot of historical or period works. I know you have a new one coming out on the BBC, though, with Richard Gere, which is more of like a
Which is not
thriller.
period.
Yeah.
No, very modern.
Which is cool. So is it easier or hard to kind of flip the script and go something more contemporary?
You mean, is it easier to do period than contemporary?
Yeah, I guess maybe like, is it fun for you to do something outside of that realm?
Yeah, I mean, I love doing both, and it's lovely to be able to kind of do period and then do contemporary if I can, do thrillers and whatever. I mean, I don't think many directors just want to do one kind of thing. The reason I love period is because actually I really do love the story of strong women, and I think that what you get in period, which may be partly what Keira loves too, is the fact that women have to fight to find their voice, to get it heard. And I think like Keira's just been in a film about Colette, the French writer. Classic example, really, of somebody who men tried to mute their voice. And I just find it really interesting to see that sort of energy to get voices heard. So I did a film called Testament of Youth about a British nurse in the First World War. Again, you know, she had to fight really hard for people to take her seriously, and yet she was super bright, and I just find that very uplifting.
Yeah, definitely. Next question.
Hi. I wanted to ask you how the production design has helped you get into the mindset of the character, and also going back to like your early start of your career, how was it like auditioning and casting for you?
Okay, production design, hugely important. I mean, I think because if you're there, if you see the world that you're meant to be in, you know, it just makes everything easier. And if you see how it's designed, you kind of know how you're meant to sort of fit into it, or if you're meant to fit into it, or if you're meant to be fighting against it. So I think, you know, actual sets as opposed to green screen are always my preferred option, because you just understand the world that you're meant to be creating. Auditions, you know, they're a really tricky thing. I think they're a really tricky thing for everybody. I was really lucky with a bunch of them, because they were mostly the ones that I always got were the ones that I thought that I didn't have a chance, and therefore I thought that I didn't care, because I thought it was stupid I was in there in the first place. So massively for Pirates of the Caribbean. Massively for Love, actually, because I thought they'd already cast it anyway. So I think that when you go in for any job interview, they can always read if you're desperate. And it's a really hard thing, because, of course, everybody wants the job. But finding some way to kind of hide that desperation to get the job, I would say, is always the best idea.
Great.
That's really good advice. Hide your desperation.
Life in general.
Yeah,
really,
just in general. Yeah. Dating, work,
hide your desperation.
Motherhood, everything. Well, guys, it was so great chatting with you today. I really did sincerely enjoy this film. It was beautiful, but also just historical relevance and things that we can learn from it as we move forward. I think is just so important. So I know audiences are going to love it. If you guys want to check it out, The Aftermath hits theaters on March 15th. Give it up for Keira Knightley and James Kent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.